Hi, I'm Dan. Welcome to the Airbrush Garage. If you're new here, welcome. Returning, thanks for coming back. Today, I'm going to do something, again, a little bit outside my wheelhouse. I've never done this before, so we're going to give it a shot today. But I think you'll see in the end, the result was really good. Somebody gave me a 3D painted model of a Georgia Bulldog. So I'm going to coat it with an epoxy first to fill in all of the little striations or the little print grooves that are caused by the 3D printer. Once I do that, I'll turn the airbrush on it and give it a shot. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, please stick around, consider subscribing, hit that bell so you get future notifications. A couple comments, good or bad, really helps out with the YouTube algorithm and helps this channel grow. Don't forget to check out all my Amazon affiliate links for the products I use in this video and all my other videos. And with that, let's get started. All right, so I coated this off camera. It came really good, but I wanted to explain to you exactly what I used and what I did. So I used a product called XTC 3D. It is an epoxy resin coating for 3D models. It fills in all of the striations caused by the 3D printer when it's layering. Now what comes in this box is a foam brush, which I'm not going to use today because the foam brush, it's going to put it on too heavy. It's not going to get everywhere that I wanted to get. So I'll get to a couple additional items that you might be able to use or that I use here in a minute. Continuing on, what came in the box is a mixing cup, the resin, and the hardener. So you got an A and a B. It's going to be a 2-to-1 mix, 2 parts of the resin to 1 part hardener. So some additional items you're going to need to do this project. Instead of using the foam brush, I use just a small paintbrush. You're going to want to get yourself some rubber gloves or latex gloves, just a paper plate, and a piece of wax paper to put your project on. So what I did was I mixed up 3/4 of an ounce. So I went a 1/2 ounce or 2/4 of the resin and 1/4 of the hardener, bringing me to 3/4 of an ounce. You want to take your mixing stick, which also comes in the box, mix it up really well. Make sure you're scraping the sides, getting off the bottom. You want to make sure it's really mixed up really well for about 1 minute. Once you're done that, you want to take that, you want to dump it onto your plate because it's going to give you more workable time if it's spread out. If you keep it in the cup, it reduces the workable time. So put it on a plate, put your gloves on, you get your brush, make sure that you're putting it on nice and even. Like I said, when I got down to the bottom of this project, I put it down on the wax paper. You want to put it on the wax paper because it won't stick to the wax paper. If you put it on, wooden surface or this cardboard surface I have here, it's definitely going to stick to it. So once you're done all of that, you can see the result here. It turned out really good. I'm really impressed with this product. You can see here in the paper plate where I had it, it's very hard and flexible. So it's not cracking when I bend it. So I'm really impressed with this product so far. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to put the Autoborn sealer over it. We'll get it all one uniform color. We'll start airbrushing. All right, so I'm going to be starting off with the Autoborn sealer, white. I'm going to be spraying it through my HPCS Eclipse. I'm going to build it up in really light coats here. So now I jumped ahead here. I'm about 4 or 5 coats in, and you can see the red is just about all covered. All right, so I'm starting off with my illustration red, and I'm using all illustration colors here by Createx. And I'm just using a paper as a shield just to keep it off of where I don't want the overspray to get. Again, I'm going to build this up in light coats as well, and I'm using the Eclipse as I did with the Autoborn sealer. Now here I'm just using my finger, as you can see, as a shield. So again, anything that's at your disposal, I'm finding with a 3D object, it's a lot more difficult than working on a flat surface. So any kind of shield, using your finger, anything that you can, at your disposal, that is going to help you out. So I'm just going to come in here and freehand all of this in, trying to keep a lot of the overspray, keeping my brush close to the objects, spraying lightly so I can keep the overspray off of where I don't want it on the white parts of the dog. One thing I want to point out where I just grabbed an aggressive eraser. If you have any kind of overspray, the aggressive eraser, will help clean things up. Now I put some orange into my red. I noticed by looking at my reference, I didn't really like the color of the red. I wanted to warm it up a little bit, so I added some orange. I think just a little bit too orange, so I'm going to add a little bit more red. And you can see I mix it right up in my cup, a little backwash. I know some people don't like backwashing. I've been doing it for years. It works for me. We'll see how that looks. Yeah, I like the way that looks. That looks pretty good. All right, so now I got some illustration black loaded up in my Iwata Micron Tukomi. And I'm gonna start detailing the face. Now, you wanna keep things light. It's always easier to go darker. Once you go too dark, it's really hard to go back and go lighter. Now, if you do make a mistake with the black when you're working on a project, the Createx Wicked opaque colors do really well at covering things up. But I'm gonna go in here and sketch out the face. The Micron does a really good job at this as it's for very fine detail. Now I can get fine detail even out of my Eclipse, but with the illustration colors, I find it sprays really, really well with this Micron. Now I'm just constantly looking at my reference. And again, I'm looking at a photo, so I know I'm not going for photorealism here, but I'm looking at my reference just for placement and color. So just like if I had a marker or a pen, I just want to sketch things in at this point. Now this is where learning how to do your really fine dots comes in handy. I'm going to freehand in these eyes here, just by spraying some really fine dots and a little line above it. That's where doing all of those basic exercises when you're first starting out really comes in handy. So now I'm going to be putting in the collar. I'm going to start off with some 1/4-inch fine line tape here. I just want to try to keep it off the red shirt as much as possible here. So I'm going to wind up eventually freehanding this, but I just want to get myself a nice crisp line to start with on the biggest part of the collar. I'm just going to come and flood that in again. Build it up in about 3 or 4 light coats. So now I'm just going to go in here and sketch the border of the sleeves with the illustration black. And I'm going to use the white underneath to my advantage to give me some variations in value of the black to simulate maybe possibly a highlight. This is really rolled up in this area where you're going to have some lows and some highs. Even though it's black, I want some variation in the tones to give it the wrinkled appearance. All right, so I'm going to take my 1/4 inch fine line tape here again, and I'm just going to tape off where the collar goes. Now I'm using illustration red, straight out of the bottle here. I want the collar to be a slightly different tone of red than the shirt so it stands out and doesn't blend in. Now I put my black back in. Gonna start going over some spots where I feel I missed or I want to refine. So I took some black and I put it in with my illustration red. I just wanted to keep the red tone, but I wanted to darken it up a little bit, just so I can go in here and do the folds in the shirt, you know, the deepest folds of the shirt in a little bit of a deeper tone. I don't want to go too dark here, but I do want to simulate that, you know, they're pushed back or pushed down. Now I got some illustration white, and again, here's where those basic dots come into play. Now I took the aggressive eraser, as you can see, and I took some of the red off of where I wanted the little spikes, just so I wouldn't have a hard time covering it with my illustration white. So now I'm going in with the dots, and I'm just refining what I did with the eraser. So now I have white back in my gun with just a touch of black, just to gray it up a little bit so I can do, again, the deepest folds of the dog, giving it further 3D definition. I don't want to go too dark here. I don't want it to look like lines. I want it to look like, you know, just shadows in the folds. So I'm just going to go around and trace and follow the folds that are given to me. Now I'm going to take some illustration black and just a regular old brush, a little bit bigger than an 1/8 inch wide this brush is, and I'm going to freehand in the G. Not something I'm really used to. As you can see, I'm steadying my hand with my left hand. And now I'm going to come in with some illustration white, and I'm going to outline it with a very fine detailed brush. You can see I'm using that eraser to clean things up a little bit sometimes. Now while I have the brush out, I'm just going to take some black. And here's where you look around, you can touch up your project. Well, all right, there you have it. Finished product came really good. A lot of firsts for me on this one. Everything from the 3D model to filling in the serrations with the epoxy resin. Without the epoxy resin, airbrushing on a plastic 3D model right off a 3D printer wouldn't go really well. It went very well painting on the epoxy. It gives you a nice smooth surface to work on. So I hope you got something from the steps that I took in this video. If you did, you know the drill. Consider subscribing, hit that bell, a couple comments, good or bad. It really does help this channel grow by commenting. Don't forget to check out all of those links down below. That really helps out the channel as well. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.